Hi everybody, and welcome back to EWE University. I'm Dr. Kelly. Today I am doing one of my ancillary videos because I haven't seen you for a while and I thought I would just kind of talk about what's been going on with me. So this will be a little more informal and personal and chatty, full of story time. So grab your knitting or other crafting and settle in to chat with me for a little while. So happy Halloween! It is Halloween today. Every year goes by amazingly fast, but it's still hard to believe we are seeing holiday stuff in the stores. Tomorrow is November already, so it's basically like Christmas will be next week. But yeah, it's been a while since my last video, and that is because a lot has been going on. I know that many of you are educators and know firsthand how difficult the last year has been. It's been really hard because of all the restrictions due to COVID, which I'm not complaining about at all, but they just made teaching very challenging. The main thing was that the students have to be spaced 6 feet apart in the classroom and at least 6 feet from the instructor. That means that our classroom capacities are greatly reduced. So we can only fit maybe half or sometimes less than half of the normal number of students in a classroom. So it's very rare that a class was so small that all the students would be able to fit in a single classroom. So we had to come up with some creative ways to teach our classes. Some instructors were teaching the same material on multiple days. Like they would have half their class come on one day and the other half come on another day, and then just teach the same material both days. So all the students had the in-class experience, but then you only get through half the material. I think that what most of us were doing, including myself, was having half the class in the classroom and the rest of the students were attending on Zoom. So everybody got to attend in person on some days and on Zoom some days. So it turned out to be such a big challenge, though, to try to manage 2 classrooms at the same time. One group of students in person and another group of students live streaming on the computer. You know, I was lucky because I had a graduate assistant who managed the Zoom students, and I had a laptop sitting on a table in front of the room with the camera pointing at me so the Zoom students could see me and hear me. My graduate assistant would put the lecture outline on the screen and also let me know if any of those students had a question or anything. I feel like the worst thing about teaching hybrid like that was the students on Zoom would just kind of check out. They all turned off their cameras, so I was teaching to a blank screen, and then even when I would ask them to turn their cameras on or ask them a specific question about the lecture by name, most of the time there was no response at all. It was like they logged into Zoom and then they left. So my experience last fall was terrible. Because of all these problems, for the spring semester, and this was last spring, I decided to completely teach all my classes on Zoom, 100%. That way I didn't have to manage 2 classrooms, and instead of me standing 20 feet away, I was sitting right at the computer, my face was right there, and they could clearly see me, and I could see them. And I had a rule that you had to have your camera on. So it was so much better. We could actually see each other, we had great interactions, and the spring semester turned out really well. Now this fall I am on sabbatical, so I'm not teaching any classes. My sabbatical project is learning how to assess oxytocin through saliva samples. So oxytocin is a hormone and neurotransmitter that is involved in things like childbirth, lactation, sexual activity, social behavior, and emotions. And I'm a social psychologist who studies relationships, and I'm interested in how different aspects of behavior and emotions can affect resting levels of oxytocin in the body. So this semester, my students and I are getting a couple of studies started where we will be looking at oxytocin concentrations associated with trust and betrayal. And then in another study, we're investigating how much just being with other people might increase oxytocin and decrease stress. So while I've been on sabbatical, I've been reading a lot of journal articles and books about oxytocin, as well as attending some workshops on collecting saliva samples and how to do that safely in the age of COVID. And I'm also learning how to extract the oxytocin from saliva using fancy equipment and then reading the data. So it's been a good semester so far, and I've been busy, but learning a lot. Back to last spring, my husband was having some serious health issues, and he ended up taking a couple months off work on medical leave, and that worked wonders for him, and he's doing great now, no problems. After the spring semester ended, I had gallbladder surgery. You know, I had mild gallbladder issues for a little while, but I would say I only had probably one major gallbladder attack. But my doctor said, let's just get it out. It's just going to get worse. So we went ahead and scheduled the surgery, and that all went well. But it took about a month before I was fully recovered and not having to wear pajamas every day. And then right after that, I had a terrible outbreak of hives. I mean, it didn't have anything to do with my gallbladder surgery, but what happened was I wasn't thinking, and I took an over-the-counter medication that I've had allergic reactions to in the past. I've avoided it for 30 years, and I guess I thought I was maybe not allergic to it anymore, but I am. So I broke out in hives, and pretty soon I lost my voice, and I ended up having to go to the hospital where they gave me a steroid shot and prednisone. The steroid shot worked really well. I got my voice back really quickly. But I ended up being allergic to prednisone, the irony of it. So I was breaking out in hives for almost a whole week before I finally just stopped taking it, and then it all cleared up. This summer, I also started doing some serious decluttering and purging around the house. My friend Brittany has been so wonderful helping me out with this. She is starting a business where she helps people organize and declutter their homes. And she's come over many days and helped me go through the things. We did the kitchen, the bedroom, my craft room, and even the whole basement. Now you might notice behind me that there's a lot less yarn. I decided to only keep the yarn I know I'll use, which is mostly sock yarn and worsted weight yarn. I just never use lace weight or sport weight or DK weight yarn. So I'm hoping to rehome much of that beautiful yarn which you used to see behind me in my videos. I'm actually selling it in my Etsy shop at deep discounts off the original prices. So if you're interested in shopping my yarn stash, go over there and take a look. I'll put the link to my Etsy shop down below this video in the description box. And when you get to my Etsy shop, just look in the section called D-Stash, and that's where all my yarn is. You guys, it's really beautiful yarn, and I hope to find people who will love it as much as I do, but actually use it. Or, hey, you can put it in your stash. I get it. But yeah, go over to Etsy and see what's there, and maybe you can find something you would like to get. And I do still have more yarn that I need to list, so keep an eye out for new listings as soon as I get them up. You know, in all my decluttering and purging, I have eliminated some crafts from my repertoire. The only crafts I've decided to keep are, number one, knitting, of course. I'm going to keep some yarn, needles, and supplies, but I got rid of what I don't need or use. Second, I'm keeping my sewing machine because I love to sew, and so I'm keeping the fabrics and thread as well. And when I feel like it, I will continue to sew. Third, I'm also keeping my paper crafting supplies because I enjoy making cards and writing letters. So I have the cardstock and decorated paper, envelopes, adhesives, paper cutter, and other supplies for that. Now, along the lines of writing letters, I'm keeping my collection of fountain pens. Lately, I've been working on organizing and kind of cataloging my fountain pens as well as my fountain pen inks. And I was thinking maybe I will talk more about my fountain pens and inks in a future video if you're interested. And then lastly, I'm keeping my watercolor painting supplies. I only have a few watercolor sets and brushes because I pared it down to only the ones I love. So that's what crafts I have left, and I've purged all the rest. Well, I haven't been doing a lot of knitting lately, but I did finish 2 hats. I'm kind of in the mood to make hats because they're pretty mindless and fast projects. I made this one out of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is a worsted weight yarn made out of a blend of Targhee and Columbia wool. And the colorway is called Artifact. This is great to work with. It creates a nice sturdy fabric, and I would say it's a medium softness. It has a little bit of squish to it. And I used a US size 7 needle, which is 4.5 millimeters. The second hat I made is this beautiful teal yarn from Mountain Meadow Wool. It is worsted weight yarn made out of Suffolk wool. And again, I used a US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needle. Now this one's definitely got more loft, more springiness than the Shelter yarn. I'm thinking I might put pom-poms on both, but I feel like I need to block them first. I don't always block hats, but I think especially the teal one could benefit from blocking. And then the third project I've been working on is super old, and I've recently picked it up again, and it is a Basketweave baby blanket. I'm almost done with it. This is a very easy pattern that alternates sections of garter stitch with 2x2 ribbing. You have to pay attention a little bit, but it's something I can work on and not have to think too much about. The yarn is Cascade Pacific Chunky, which is an acrylic and merino blend, and it's in the color navy. It is very nice to work with, soft and squishy. Like the name says, it is a chunky yarn, and I am using a US 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter needle. Now in this yarn there are 120 yards in a skein, and I think I'm on the 7th skein, which is the last one. So I'm going to finish this project up pretty soon. So anyway, that is what I've been working on lately as far as knitting. You might remember I told you last year that our dog Sunny had died. That was back in January 2020. So it's been almost 2 years, and we still miss him so much. And when you lose a dog who's part of the family, it's just devastating. And you don't know if you ever want to get another one. But of course we did. About 5 months later, in May 2020, we adopted another golden retriever named Summer. She's a golden retriever that we adopted from a shelter, and she's 2 years old now. I feel so lucky that we were able to adopt her. Getting her was quite a roller coaster ride. I started looking for dogs at shelters in our area a year ago in April, and I was looking online at websites like Pet Finders, which is where a lot of shelters list their dogs and cats that are available for adoption. And one day I happened to see this picture of a beautiful young golden retriever at a shelter that's about an hour away. And now I've had golden retrievers since, the 1980s. So I've had a lot of golden retrievers, and I was hoping to find another one, but honestly, they don't come into shelters that often. So when I saw this one, I put in my application right away. Well, a few hours later, her picture was taken down, and I figured, well, she's already been adopted. But then a couple days later, I got a phone call from the shelter, and they were interviewing for that dog. So we had a great conversation, and I thought the interview went well. And then the next day, I got an email saying, "Thank you, but she's been adopted by someone else." And I was like, who could be better than me? But what do you do? So I had seen another dog on their website at that shelter, and she was a black lab named Pepper. And I called the shelter about her, and they said, she's great, she's been here for a while, and come and visit her on Saturday. So on Saturday, I was on my way to the shelter when they called and asked if I was going to come and see Pepper. And I said, yeah, I'm on my way. And they said, well, someone else is coming to see her too. but go ahead and come and we'll figure it out. Oh, and by the way, that golden retriever that you applied for, she's actually coming back because it's not working out with the lady who adopted her. And I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely want her. So I got to the shelter, I met the guy who was there visiting Pepper, and he just loved her. I said, you go ahead and adopt her because there's another dog that I originally wanted who's coming back. So it was a win-win situation for everybody. So I talked to the shelter staff about this golden retriever, and they told me they'd call me when they knew she was coming back. So about a week later, they called and said I could come pick her up the next day. So I did, and we named her Summer. She's such a good girl. We love her to death. And it's also a bonus that she and our cat get along really well. In my last video, I got a lot of comments about my new hairstyle and color. And thank you guys so much for your kind compliments. Yes, my hair is looking very different than it was pre-pandemic. For one thing, I grew out my bangs. It felt really weird to do that because I've had bangs since I was in 7th grade. But they've finally grown out enough they're not bugging me and hanging in my face all the time. And then the other big difference is obviously the color. I started having my hair colored silver. You know, like most of us, or many of us, I have some grays going on in my natural hair color, and I just decided to completely embrace it. So yeah, about a year ago, I just started getting my whole head of hair colored silver. And I get it done at the salon because I have tried the home silver hair colors, but they just don't last very long. Luckily these days, silver is considered a fashion color, so even young people are wearing it. Now I find that it does take a little effort to maintain this color. Mainly what that means is that I use a lot of purple shampoo and conditioner to keep the color toned, which means that the hair stays basically gray, let's face it, gray, and ashy. So my favorite brand of purple shampoo is this Framesi, and they make purple shampoo and purple conditioner. It's made in Italy, and the shampoo is very thick, and I do use quite a bit of it, but you have to be careful because it will splash all around your shower and look like somebody murdered Barney. It will also stain your fingernails, so you look like a mechanic with grease under your nails. So be sure to wash your hands really well after using that shampoo. I also sometimes use a color depositing shampoo called Viral Color Wash in Pastel Silver. And this is made in the USA by a company called Celeb Luxury. It actually puts a little bit of silver color into your hair each time you shampoo with it. So it's great for maintaining the color and preventing fading. Now, even though this shampoo deposits color onto your hair, I've not had any problems with it staining my hands or splashing all over the shower. I would also say, if you're interested in getting your hair colored silver, I've had to be really careful about using heat on my hair. If the heat on your blow dryer or curling iron is too high, it will strip the color right off. So I always use a heat protector spray. Right now I'm using Main Magic by Eva NYC, which is a brand I've liked for a long time, and now you can get it at Target, so that's great. It's a spray-in detangler and heat protector for your hair that you use before blow drying. So I like that all their products now come in aluminum cans, so they're easily recyclable. Another thing I got a lot of compliments on in my last video was my glasses. I think the ones I was wearing in that video were burgundy color, but I probably have about 10 pairs of glasses that I've collected over the past few years because I like to wear different glasses to kind of go with what I'm wearing. And you're probably wondering, how do you have 10 pairs of glasses when glasses are so expensive? Well, I started getting my glasses online from a company called EyeBuyDirect a few years ago. So here I thought I would do a little fashion show of the glasses I've gotten from them. Now the blue ones that I'm wearing today are called Nikki. This one has a floral pattern on the frame, which I love, and this one's called Nola. This red one is Cassia. This green one is called Dearly. I have a couple pairs of black frames, and this first one is called Clover. And this one is Jasmine, and I love the oversized look on these. These are the glasses I was wearing in my last video. It's called Field in Burgundy. I have these cute pink ones that are called Turner. And these next ones are kind of a teal color in the frame called Cherbourg. These are gray and are called Ghost Rider. And these purple ones are called Rosa. And lastly, these brown ones are called November, and I got these frames on sale for only $9. So anyway, those are the glasses I've gotten from EyeBuyDirect. Oh, and I also got a free pair of sunglasses when they had a promotion going one time. Now it's easy to order your glasses from EyeBuyDirect online. If you have your vision prescription, or just get it from your eye doctor, you can just enter the information from that into your account on their website. And then you can search for glasses by style, by color, by size. I personally like searching by size because I have a big head, so I'm always looking for the extra large or wide frames. You can even upload a picture of yourself so you can try different glasses on and see what they look like. I found that their prices are really good, and they do have a lot of sales, like 30% off or buy one, get one free. I always wait until there's a sale going on, so every one of my glasses have been well under $100, and I have progressive lenses, which can be very expensive. They also have a great return policy. If something isn't right with your glasses, you can send them back and they redo them and send you a new pair. I had to do that with one pair because the bifocal part was off, and I sent them back and they redid the lenses, and now they're just fine. So yeah, that is EyeBuyDirect, and I've had awesome experiences with them. Their offices and lab are in the US, so you get your glasses pretty quickly after you order them. I thought I would end the video today with my scary book of the year. You might remember that I always like to read a horror novel during October because it's Halloween and everything, and I don't normally read horror books, but I do once a year. In past Octobers, I've read Frankenstein, Dracula many times, The Shining, The Turn of the Screw, many others. So this year for my scary book, I listened to the audiobook of Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It was published last year in June of 2020. So reading a contemporary horror novel was kind of different for me because I usually read a classic, but I thought I would share with you my thoughts on this book. So this story takes place in the 1950s in Mexico, which was a time of increasing prosperity in the country. This economic boom is reflected in the character of Noemi, the 22-year-old daughter of a wealthy industrialist. She's initially presented as a glamorous socialite who enjoys fine furs and flirting with men. But she's intelligent too and focused on a career in anthropology. Our first impression of Noemi changes, though, when her father receives a letter from his niece and Noemi's cousin, Catalina. In the letter, Catalina claims her new husband and his family are trying to poison her. So Noemi's father sends her to check out the situation and make sure Catalina is safe. So what Noemi discovers is a sleepy, forgotten mountain town. It used to be a prosperous silver mining town, but after the mine dried up, the entire economy collapsed. And sitting at the top of a treacherous, winding road looking down on the town is High Place, a Gothic English manor built decades ago by Howard Doyle, who is Catalina's new father-in-law. It is here at High Place, with its moldy wallpapers and musty hallways, where Noemi is compelled to stay to help her cousin. The mansion is large, cold, and inhospitable. It's a slowly rotting relic that sets Noemi on edge. The Doyle family, however, is perhaps even more unnerving than their house. The Doyles own the now defunct silver mine, in which countless Mexican workers died. Now, Howard Doyle reveals himself as a eugenics enthusiast, and this opens up issues of race, class, and power, which pretty much distinguishes Mexican Gothic from every other retelling of haunted houses on the hill. The Doyles' wealth was made on the backs of Mexican miners. When this plague of illness swept through the mining camp, the Doyle family did little to assist, quarantining themselves in their mansion as the miners fell ill and died. They never really cared that they were exploiting the native people. So this metaphor of colonialism, stripping the land of its wealth and exploitation of indigenous population, gives added depth to the story. Not only must Noemi free Catalina from the clutches of the Doyles, but she must also rid the country of a colonial presence that has literally poisoned the land for decades. So the decaying setting and the creepy family represent the conventions of Gothic literature. But the last third of the novel gets into the horror genre as the darkest of the Doyle family secrets come to light. What was simmering dread comes to a ferocious boil with evil, violence, and stomach-churning gore. Squeamish readers beware, which I am one. I had to stop listening to it for a while and fast forward a few times because I was so grossed out in parts and afraid of what revolting thing was going to come next. So overall, this is a pretty realistic story with a paranormal twist. It starts with a simple case, Noemi trying to understand what is happening to her cousin. Is she being poisoned? Is she mentally ill? Noemi knows something is wrong in High Place, and she refuses to believe the lies the Doyles tell her about Catalina. She has the capacity as a well-educated and empowered woman to stare down the gloating, sleazy men when she learns the truth about the Doyle family. I did think there were a couple of weaknesses in the story. First, the family tree is kind of challenging to memorize. It took me a while to remember who everyone was and how they were related exactly. And second, there's a completely unnecessary romance side plot. I didn't think that really added anything to the story. And third, and this is me because I'm squeamish, the climax of the story was a bit much for me in terms of being disgusting and gross. Another downside, and this has to do with the audiobook version of the novel, is that I didn't like the reader that much. She was almost too precise in her pronunciation of words, like voicing every single letter in a word. I just kept thinking, who talks like that? Just speak like a normal person. But anyway, I thought it was generally a good story, which had a lot of interesting aspects like the colonialism metaphor. And it was pretty realistic up to the point where, toward the end, it took a supernatural turn. So I think I would give this book about a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked it okay, and it was an interesting, creepy book to listen to for my October tradition. I would give the audiobook reader about 2 stars though. She's not the worst I've ever heard, but certainly not one of the best. So again, that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me. And in that vein, leave a comment down below and let me know what you've been up to. What books have you been reading? What projects have you been working on? Or you can always just say hi. It's always great to hear from you. I'm hoping to be back with another video soon. So I will see you next time. And in the meantime, stay smart and healthy and have a sparkly week.